Hi everybody, welcome to the module 3 of the Digital Product Management course. Today we're going to talk about how we organize ourselves to deliver efficiently. So there's going to be a bit of process and we're going to talk about roles and responsibility. So the caveat to this part of the video is that I completely realize that depending on who you are, which organization, which size, things are going to vary greatly. You might be the only one doing digital or product. You might be in a big team. You might have some tech resources. You might not. So I really want you to take this as this is quite generic, and then hopefully in the live calls, if you have any specific questions to your team, to your organizations, you can bring them to that session. Quick reminder, so we're on module 3. We've done the strategy and the roadmap. It's less important to have done those two in that sequence, but I still would recommend that you go back to module 1 and module 2 if you haven't done them, because they're quite important. So outcomes for this particular module, as I said, we're going to talk about roles and responsibility and how they map to the process. I really wanted to be a bit more confident in implementing and scaling. I want to give you some practical tips on how to organize your time and your calendar. And hopefully you'll be able to identify some gaps in the process or place area of improvement in your own processes. So the first thing I want you to look at is this little table here, which kind of very very simply put the differences between the different roles. And I know depending on where you are, again, you might be called a product manager, you might be called a project manager, you might be called something else, you might be coming from a comms background, marketing background. So these are not kind of standard. These are standard role, but you might be a mix of all of these. Have a look at, hopefully it's self-explanatory, but there are some clear differences between a product and a project manager. And that's really what you want to focus on, is that the mindset of a project manager is to have a very fixed set of deliverables, a timeline and a budget, where the product manager very much lives with his product, and that doesn't really end. There is no end to a product. The website will never be fully complete. You will always need to do improvement and learning and iteration to it. So that's really what you want to focus on. Product owner is typically more technical, and I would say unless you're in a big team and you have many resources, you probably will play both the product manager and the product owner role. This is the one I want you to focus on in terms of understanding you as a product manager and what, if you're looking maybe to hire a product manager, or if you're looking to reshape your team, these are the skills that you're looking for, and these are the accountabilities and key responsibilities that you want to highlight. I think for me, the one that's the two things that stands out really is passionate about customers or users, really being user-led, excellent communicator, and being able to say no and prioritize. The product manager really defends the product and the roadmap and is able to prioritize and back people off when needed. As I said, being able to clearly communicate, set out the vision, and really have that inspiration almost role for the team to lead the way and lead the charge, being very focused on the user needs and understanding the market, either the sector that you operate in, but also from a digital product management point of view, understanding what's happening in the tech sector, in the digital sector. So it's quite networking and really reading the market well. I'm putting this here because, again, you might not feel like you have a digital team, but actually you have an organization, and unless you're the only person in the organization, you're the CEO, founder, and you're doing everything, you might have people in those different functions, or traditional functions. You might not, but again, and the point I'm trying to make here is that everyone is involved in product management. Everyone has a role to play, and when we talk about the roadmap in module 2, I really encourage you to bring in people from the organizations to give you that counsel and that expertise in fitting in requirements. That way you have everybody brought in together, and it's a much more collaborative process. So this is where we're going to get a bit technical. So I'm going to go through the slide, and then I just obviously you have the handouts to read at on your own time. Feel free to ask questions during the live sessions, and don't panic if that's a bit too complex. So this is kind of a full swim lane almost of delivery of activities that are sort of running across your calendar. So at the top here, you've got delivery, and we talk about sprint, which is effectively a 2-week cycle where you're very focused on delivering a particular set of features and particular value for users. So you work in 2-week sprints to drive the focus in determining whether the idea should progress or be stopped. So you might have design sprint, but you also have delivery, actual building sprints. The idea is that the scope of those 2 weeks doesn't change. So you've blocked those 2 weeks as a set of deliverable and a set of activities that you're going to do, and no one changes that. At the end of this, you do a demo and you share with everybody what you've done, and then the team decide what needs to start or stop or change. The next swim lane is the research lane, and I think that's really important for product managers to keep an eye on what I call the radar, or horizon scanning, understanding, as I said, what's happening in the sector, what's happening in the mobile app world, comparing digital experiences online, and just having that kind of inspiration and really good understanding of the outside. And not necessarily just your direct competition, if I can say that word. And that kind of happens, once a month. I block a Friday afternoon and do that. Just go off email and just have a time to read blogs and Twitter and lots of online resources now. Watch YouTube videos. There's lots and lots of resources that I would recommend people to use. The next swim lane down is the governance, which we'll cover in the next module in more detail. But here, effectively, is a product council, which is where you provide updates and you validate the product priorities, and then you share a funding overview. And that tends to happen every 8 weeks. And then, kind of twice a year, you look at ideation and innovation sort of sessions. Typically, they are a 1-day workshop or half-day workshops that you facilitate as a product manager with the wider business and technology community. So you kind of look at getting as many people as you can from the rest of the team to really have that collaborative effort and design effort. And it's basically gathering all those ideas that people may have been sharing during the year. And then you sort of put them through the filter that we talked about in the strategy session. So that is kind of how, as a product manager, you can organize your delivery effectively. Your activities are 4 key blocks of activity, and this is why I encourage people to color code your calendar, for example. So you have everything to do with delivery, everything to do with research, everything to do with governance and or decision making, and then everything to do with ideation and new product. The next sort of process kind of slide is this one, which is effectively a dual track. So you've got at the top here the product discovery, which is all the things that are linked to prototyping and ideation, research. And then you've got the product delivery, which is where you commit to deliver sort of features. So they are effectively going in parallel, and you could be doing, depending again on how many resources you have and who you have in your team, you might be able to do a design sprint in parallel with a delivery sprint from the previous design sprint research, if that makes sense. So you can keep them moving in parallel. You can do, a couple of sprints on discovery and ideation, and then once you've got that validated, you then push the delivery forward. Again, it depends on resources. But the idea is that once you've committed to the product delivery sprint and the scope of that sprint, you don't change your priorities, because that's where inefficiency happens. That's where if you listen to people saying, "Oh, can we just do this?" No, if he hasn't gone through the process of discovery, validation, it doesn't go into the sprint. A similar sort of slide in terms of the product management in an agile kind of context, and lots of agile words in there that you recognize. Maybe they are all. This is a very sort of familiar process, which effectively you take your input from customer, the team, the managers, and then you sort of shape the backlog, which is a list of requirements that is prioritized depending on the value that they add. You spend some time on planning. You break out the task into your backlog. You then have sometimes a Scrum Master. Very likely you won't have one if you're a small organization, but effectively you are in charge of protecting the development and that scope for the sprint. So no changes during that deliverable. And if you work with an agency, they might have a Scrum Master, and I would encourage you to ask them to work together to understand how they work and what they need from you to be successful. And then there are some key sort of meetings here, like stand-ups or sprint review or sprint retrospective, that I would encourage you to have. So you then keep that communication going. You share, you're fully transparent on where you are on progress, and people are very aware of how things are progressing. Right, I'm going to pause here, and this is the end of the teach part. As I said, those videos are quite short, and there's lots of other resources online to be able to understand a bit more in the detail. But if you do have any questions, let me know, and I look forward to seeing your practice part in the next call.